afternoon and welcome back to My Harlem Portraits, the show that aims at shedding a light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and on Black excellence. Today, we are going to talk about a legend in jazz and an advocate for social justice and education who was born 100 years ago, last April 22nd. I'm talking about Charles Mingus. Jazz at Lincoln Center will celebrate the Centennial and his legacy as a trailblazer, a composer, a performer, and a band leader with performances both in the Rose Theater and Dizzy's Club from April 19 to April 26. To talk about this icon, we have another icon, a very special guest, a tenor saxophonist who has been a member of the Mingus Dynasty, the Mingus Big Band, and the Mingus Orchestra since the late 90s and has made several recordings with them. I am talking about Wayne ESCOFFERY. Thank you for being with us and welcome to My Harlem Portraits.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for giving me the time for this. You are a Grammy winner musician, a composer, a band leader, the 2014 Downbeat Critics Poll winner, and one of the world's most talented jazz stars. Tell me about your experience with the different bands, Mingus bands, and how influential it has been for you to interpret Mingus for so many years.
I will. I'll first start by saying thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And one addition, I actually also won the Downbeat Critics Poll in 2021. That's right. For soprano saxophone. I'm very proud of that because I work hard on my soprano. You know, it's really been an honor playing Mingus's music for this many years, and you know, playing his music has you know, provided a lot of challenges for me, mainly of course musically and artistically, and pushed me in the way that a young musician needs to be pushed to achieve that excellence. And I think in the tradition of Charles Mingus, the band has really inspired me to create individuality and be the best musician that I can be. So it's really been a pleasure and an honor doing that through his music.
And definitely you have been the best you can be, and you will always be. I can say that, and we can hear that.
Thank you, thank you.
The celebrations will present the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis and the free bands, Mingus bands that we've talked about before, which have been established by Sue Mingus after her husband's death to carry on his musical legacy. Tell me about a little bit how this will take place for our viewers, because you are going to conclude the celebration, right? But let's talk about these bands first. Are you going to be with the bands, or you're going to be only on the 26th?
Of course, yes. I'm going to be with all of the bands. The band's going to be at Birdland and then also at Dizzy's. Yeah, we're going to be, you know, in real Mingus fashion, we're going to have really the best of the best in New York City. I mean, that's what the Mingus Band has always done. It's been this melting pot of the best musicians in New York City, whether it's the Dynasty, the Orchestra, and the Big Band, and all bands will be participating and playing in this. And you'll see all different kind of configurations of really some great musicians. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fantastic. I'm gonna come on the 21st, I think. So I'm cool. Very happy, because after that I'm going to swim with dolphins. I'm taking a week off.
Ooh, nice.
Going to Honduras. Ooh, I'm so happy about that. So In 2016, you were appointed lecturer of jazz improvisation at the Yale School of Music, which was a first for the Yale Jazz Initiative. And to conclude the Centennial festivities on April 26, you will be directing the Yale Jazz Ensemble, and you will be joined by two other very important contemporary Mingus interpreters, like Frank Lacy, the trombone, and Michael Philip Mossman, trumpet. Tell me a little bit about this. How will that be organized?
Well, when I first joined the Mingus Band, I think my first gig was in 1999. When I first joined the band, Mike Philip Mossman was a regular member, as was Frank Lacy, and as still is Frank Lacy. So with the Yale Jazz Ensemble, what I've done is invited them in as special guests so that the students really get a feel for not just what it's like to play Mingus's music, the music that's on the page, but what it's like to really be a part of the Mingus organization. And I think no one more than Frank Lacy really embodies Mingus's music and the energy, and understands not only the music, but the messages of social justice, and also the soul and the drive behind the music. So it's really important for me that I had somebody like Frank Lacy there. So he's there with the band. He'll be singing and playing trombone. And then Michael Philip Mossman actually is one of the people that has arranged a lot of the music for the Mingus Band. And you know, a lot of the music that we play, while of course it's directly taken from Mingus's charts, and some of them are actually, you know, Mingus's original charts, we have different arrangers that, for the most part, really just transcribe and really add a little here and there to the pieces. And Mike Mossman is one of the people that has written a lot of great arrangements. So he's going to be there as a soloist, and also maybe I'll have him guest conduct one or two pieces. So it's going to be a really great feeling for the students, and also for the people in attendance, to see what it's like to play Mingus's music, what it's like to interact with the real Mingus Big Band members, and you know, that apprenticeship kind of situation is going to be in full viewing effect right there at Dizzy's.
It's going to be amazing, and for the students, it must be such a rewarding and learning experience, and something that they will always remember. It would be really something to look back to and say, wow, I did that and that and that day. That must be fantastic.
That's right. That's right. I tell you, every single time I share the stage with Frank Lacy, I remember it. And every time I play Mingus's music, it's a memorable and unique experience. So I know those students are going to feel that.
As I told you before, I'm really a fan of the big band of Mingus, and I've been seeing those bands when I was living in the village. I was always coming to see you guys. This was fantastic. So I'm very excited about coming to see you guys.
Great.
In 2006, you started one of the most important and coveted collaborations in jazz. You had the frontline position in Tom Harrell's Quintet. What did that mean for your career? And tell me a bit about that, and what you felt, and the places you went that you most liked.
Well, you know, joining Tom Harrell's Quintet and being a part of that band was really a huge stepping stone for me, as was joining the Mingus Band in the late 90s. I mean, I was in the Mingus Band for about 10 years or so before I joined Tom. And joining Tom was really almost like earning a doctorate degree, like a real deep study in harmony. It was a great experience to be able to play with musicians on the highest level on a day-to-day basis, touring around the world, playing at, you know, the Vanguard several times a year, playing at all the great venues, and playing some of the most creative and challenging and thoughtful music of our time. So that was really a beautiful experience, and just having that relationship and building that friendship with Tom and with everybody, with all the members of the band, Jonathan Blake, Danny Grissett, Ghana Kegwa, was really invaluable, has been invaluable to my development. And I can tell you how much of a part of me that is now.
Yeah, it must be amazing to study with the masters and play with them. Over the years, you have recorded and performed at the international level with a who is who in jazz, including Ron Carter, Ben Riley, Abdullah Ibrahim, Herbie Hancock, just to name a few of them. Abdullah Ibrahim, I used to see him here in New York. And years ago, I went to South Africa and I was in Cape Town for 3 days, and I see a poster. Abdullah Ibrahim was playing solo. I couldn't believe it because, you know, he had been in exile here. He couldn't go back to South Africa. So he was back in South Africa at the time, and I went to see him, and it was an amazing performance. And I couldn't believe that he remembered who I was, because that was years before in New York. And as I came into his dressing room, Marie! And he was there with his wife, and it was fantastic. But seeing him so happy and free, because now he was back in his country.
Yeah, one of the things he always said to me at the beginning of every gig is he'd give me a big hug and say, "Welcome home." You know, it just you really felt that every time.
So tell me about your experiences, these memories. Which memories are dearest to you, or things that you remember with a particular emphasis?
With Abdullah or with anyone in general?
In general, Ron Carter, Ben Riley, Abdullah, Herbie Hancock.
Well, that's a difficult one to answer. I mean, I probably have something for each of those musicians. I mean, you know, for Abdullah, since we just mentioned him, I mean, one of the things that I remember is just that for sure is the quietest that I've ever had to play, the most soft I've ever had to play, you know. You know, there's a saying, play loud if you want people to hear you, play really soft if you want people to listen. And I think he really embodied that in a lot of ways. And his music was so powerful and had such a large dynamic range. And I was pretty young when I played with him. I, you know, just moved to New York. You know, it taught me to have a lot of control and really think about the shape of a song and really think of sound, you know, really think of sound. You're not just, even when you speak, you're not just speaking at one dynamic level. You know, you're not just spitting out the information. You know, there are sound waves, there's air, there's breath, there's everything that comes into making sound. And he was really a master of that. And so I remember, you know, the first time stepping on stage with him and we starting a song and it being a lot quieter than I thought it was going to be.
You weren't used to that kind of quiet. Tell me about something else. I'm very interested in this souvenirs, and, you know, because that's what creates a musician, all these different experiences.
Well, you know, that's hard. I mean, you know, I think of a couple of things kind of generally, you know, and going back to Mingus, you know, it's very intimidating when you're in a band like that of all of your heroes. I mean, you know, when I was in college, one of my dreams was to play in the Mingus Big Band. And when I would see, you know, them on the cover of Downbeat magazine, or I would see ads with them and see all of the greats, you know, or even all of the young lions of the day, you know, in the band, I was like, man, that's really what I want to do. And my first gig with the Mingus Big Band was actually, I'm pretty sure it was 99. And it was Thanksgiving of 99. I remember, the reason why I remember it so vividly is because I got a call from Sue Mingus, whose birthday is actually tomorrow, April 2nd. And I got a call from her and she said, would you like to come down and play with the band? It was Thanksgiving, you know, the band played at Times Square. The band played at the Time Cafe on Thursdays. And because it was Thanksgiving, a lot of the regular guys were out of town. And so she called me and said, would you like to play? And I said, of course. So I went down And I walk in the room and there's people like John Stubblefield was actually there. Randy Brecker was there. Jeff Tane Watts was on drums. David Kikoski was on piano. All these people that I saw in magazines and listened to on albums were there. And it's very intimidating. And what do I have to offer, you know? And as a little bit of a side note, but related, I remember one time in college meeting Houston Person, the great tenor saxophonist Houston Person. And, you know, one of the things he said to me, he said, young man, always remember that there's room in this business for everyone. And when I went into that Mingus situation, I kind of had Houston in the back of my head saying, look, man, you know, even though there's all these greats here, even though they have a lot more experience than you have individuality, you have a lot to offer. So you need to find your place and find your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the biggest thing that I've learned from being in the Mingus Big Band is that it's important to find your own identity and be true to that, and realize that what you have to offer is valid. And that's the beauty of Mingus's music, is that it challenges everyone musically and artistically. So everyone has to figure out a way to navigate, but also be an original. So yeah, that's a big takeaway.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Thank you for this. This is what I like in my interviews. I want to get to the important thing, the small thing, the human experience, because everything else you can read it everywhere else, see it everywhere. I want different.
Sure.
You lead your own groups, which tour the globe and have made several highly acclaimed studio recordings with them. I would like to know about your current working quartet, because it also is amazing, the people who play with you. From David Kikoski, bassist Ugonna. Okay, well, I know him, but I call it Ugonna because
you did a pretty good job. You did a pretty good job.
Yeah. And drummer Ralph Peterson. Tell me, you started in 2014 with this group, and the first performance you had was a small jazz club.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, very good. Did your research. That's good.
And you, in 2015, so the year after, you and the band celebrated the release of your recording, Wayne ESCOFFERY Live at Smalls. Tell me a little bit about that, and then what you did afterwards, and what are the countries in which you like most to play? I'm Italian, okay, so. Don't forget.
Sure. Okay? But you know, of course I love it always. In fact, I was just in Milan 2 weeks ago. It was beautiful.
I know. I saw it in your bio. I said, "Oh no, it was that." You go
such a great time in Milan. Yeah, we played at the Blue Note, and actually that was their first kind of more full capacity concert that they'd had in quite a long time. So it was a really great feeling.
Yeah.
I love going to Italy, you know, for a variety of reasons. You know, Italians really love jazz, you know, and so it's not, everyone says, I love Italy, I love the food, love hanging out, but you know, I love the appreciation of the art, and they just love jazz. They buy the albums, they listen to the albums, they know the music, and it's really nice. It's really good to have fans that are like that. As far as,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so as far as the question you asked, as far as my quartet, so first of all, I should say my you know, Ralph Peterson, actually, we lost Ralph Peterson almost exactly a year ago. He passed away last March. And so it's really been an honor to have really one of his prized pupils, the great Mark Whitfield Jr., who joined me on drums for this last tour, and is actually going to be going into the studio with me in a few weeks to record the band's new album. So the new drummer is Mark Whitfield Jr. And we did start back then at Smalls, and I've been playing with Ralph on and off for many years in different people's groups, in Jeremy Pelt's group, and I played with Ralph's group on various occasions. And I wanted to put, you know, at that time I was like, look, I want to tour with the Wayne ESCOFFERY Quartet on a regular basis. This is what I want to do, and I want to aggressively focus on that, because up until that point, really, I always had my own quartet and I always did my own projects, but really my main focus was I wanted to be a consummate musician. I wanted to be a great sideman. And it was really important to me because a lot of my tenor saxophone heroes were great sidemen. Other musicians could count on them to interpret their music, like Tom Harrell counted on me. And that was a really important part of who I wanted to be. But at that time I said, you know what? I want to be a leader and I want to travel with this group. So I really dedicated my time to that. And I could think of no one else better than Uganda, who I had traveled with all over the world with Tom Harrell, with Dave Kikoski, who I played so many times with the Mingus Big Band, and also with Eddie Henderson. And then Ralph is a master drummer who I knew I could count on, and I knew that I trusted musically.
Yeah.
And, we played at Smalls. And actually, I should say that I actually had a different drummer in mind at first, but that drummer couldn't make the Smalls gig. So I said, well, who should I call? I said, well, that was easy. I mean, I love Ralph. So let me just call Ralph. And I called Ralph, and he played amazingly, and we did the Live at Smalls recording. And, I think what was happening to Ralph a lot of times when people would call him, they would ask him to be on an album, because they knew he was a master musician, and he's also really, really great in the studio, which takes a whole nother set of skills. And then oftentimes when the group would be on tour and have things as a band, they would get someone else, maybe a younger musician to fill the drum chair. And Ralph said to me, he said, listen, man, I'm going to do this recording for you. And he's like, but I want to make sure that when you have gigs and then when you tour, you're calling me. And I really respected him being very blunt and out front with me. And I said, you got it, man. And we did it. And the first gig we had after that was at the Village Vanguard, which of course I asked Ralph I got the whole band. And then from then on, we stayed a tight-knit unit. And I think Ralph really appreciated that. And I was so grateful that he was with me for that whole time. I learned so much. I think we learned from each other. And I think traveling around the world with that unit showed me a lot of things. I think we all grew as a band. We learned about each other. We learned about each other's musical abilities and strengths and weaknesses. And it was just really an amazing experience. And like I said, we just came off of a 2-week tour with the new iteration of the band with Mark Whitfield Jr. on drums. And I can't tell you how great it felt. It felt amazing. This band really feels good. And it feels like it's a band. It's not just, it's not some sort of studio group or group that lays down tracks.
Band.
It's a jazz group of the highest level that makes great music. And I can't tell you how great of a feeling it is to play for sold out audiences of people who just love the music.
You'll be a sold out audience also at the Jazz at Lincoln Center.
I hope so.
You have my email now. You better use it to put me in your mailing list for when you perform, because I don't want to miss you.
For sure.
You are also a founding member of a collaborative group called Black Art Jazz Collective. Tell us a little bit about this. It sounds very, very interesting. We have 3 minutes left.
Sure. Well, Black Art Jazz Collective, our first gig was also at Dizzy's. And I got to say, I can't thank Dizzy's enough for being a place for me to grow and to really try out these different musical experiments, as it were. And Black Art Jazz Collective is really a group of some of my peers from my generation: Jeremy Pell, James Burton. The current iteration is Victor Gould on piano, Rashawn Carter on bass, and also Mark Whitfield Jr. And we play music, all original music that we all different, we all write together. And most of the music is inspired by African-American culture, African-American icons, and kind of telling some of the untold stories of African-American history, and also what that is just American history. And it's really a great opportunity to open up conversations with people about different things relating to race and equity and social justice, and particularly related to Black men and Black society. And an important aspect of it is that we are all Black men. It doesn't have to be men. I've actually called women for the group and they weren't available. But I think it's important for us to show that, because there are a lot of negative stereotypes about African-American men in America, that there is that positive image of 6 Black men performing, who we have families and we're writing music and we're talking about these things that are important to us, and that our personality and our identity is integral in the music. So the group develops, and it's going to evolve in a lot of different ways, and I look forward to seeing how that does develop.
That sounds really very, very interesting. I never heard that group before, so I'm definitely very interested in finding out. So we come to the end, and in addition to performing, you are also dedicated to teach, educate, present lectures and master classes on jazz music, one-on-one and with more people. Tell us a little bit about that, which is very, very interesting. I saw one of your classes. I wish I could play something, because that was very interesting.
Well, we're all improvisers, that's for sure. Yeah, well, I mean, it is in the jazz tradition that we all share our knowledge. I mean, that's how we learned. I mean, I learned from my master saxophone teacher, Jackie McLean, and Ron Carter and George Coleman, and a lot of those guys passed knowledge down to me, and really that's all I'm doing. I mean, I wouldn't be a thorough musician if I didn't continue that tradition of passing down the music. And so whether that's at Yale University or at NJPAC, Jazz for Teens, or doing master classes or private lessons, whatever that is, whatever form that takes, I think that's a part of creating music, and it's a part of being a jazz musician. That's if you really want to be a part of the jazz community, I think that's integral. Sharing the knowledge and sharing what you have, because that's the only way you learn this music. You can't learn this music from a book.
No, that's what jazz is about: learning and improvising, and learning to improvise, I suppose. So we have come to the end of our talk. It was wonderful to be able to talk to you. I can't wait to come and see you guys and listen to you. And please, so thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with My Harlem Portrait another time. See you next time, 12:30, Spectrum 1993. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.